Gates was in India a couple of weeks ago, and this is what he said. No country has built a more comprehensive digital infrastructure than India. We need innovation from the world, but specifically, we need innovation from India. To talk about India's digital ecosystem as well as the engines for growth, joining me now are three very special individuals. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm round of applause as we welcome the Secretary of the Department of Telecommunications, K. Rajaraman. Mr. Rajaraman, can we have you join us here on the Rising India stage? Also with us is Mr. BVR Subramaniam, the new CEO of the Niti Aayog. Mr. Subramaniam, please join us on the Rising India stage. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. And the man who is creating milestones with UPI, the CEO of the National Payments Corporation of India, Dilip Asbe, joins us here at Rising India. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Rajaraman, the middle is fine, sir. The middle seat is fine, and we'll get Dilip right at the end. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us here today. Mr. Rajaraman, let me start by asking you, because the growth of digital India is incumbent on the digital highway and the digital infrastructure, which the Department of Telecommunications that you lead is responsible for. So let me start by asking you about where things currently stand now as far as the National Broadband Mission is concerned, as well as BharatNet. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who may not be aware, BharatNet is essentially the plan to connect India's villages with high-speed broadband connectivity. So I want to start by asking you for an update on where things currently stand. What are the latest milestones on that front?
So, it's a pleasure being here in this very diverse audience. So the task before us is to actually to enable every citizen of this country to access broadband. That is the ultimate goal that the Honorable Prime Minister set for all of us. So this journey of laying out optic fibers to the rural heartlands, I think, is a very onerous task, given that we have very diverse territories which are remote, mountainous, etc. So the target that was before us was nearly 2.5 lakh gram panchayats. Out of that, construction is going on in all the 2.2, and the 1.9 lakh gram panchayats have already been wired up with the optic fiber. So in October, we took the decision of actually commencing the monetization. Because at the end of the day, I think they must be put to use. So we have come out with a commercial plan, which is not, which is partly subsidized, in the sense that we give the box for free. And we also provide bandwidth at a reasonable cost. And today we have reached, in the last 4 or 5 months, we have reached about 2.5 lakh households. They are wired up with fiber connections. And we couldn't believe that that the per household consumption has reached nearly about 160 GB per month, which is amazing, I think. So therefore, there is a huge pent-up demand out there, and I'm sure that the way we are going to expand now will actually satisfy that requirement for information and the connectivity to the world, I think. So I believe that BharatNet has a great opportunity to actually be a complement to the mobile networks. While 5G gets rolled out, the mobility aspect of connectivity will get addressed. But I guess there is also a parallel requirement for connectivity at the households, where penetration may be inadequate.
Yeah.
So people have requirement for online education, for businesses within the households, and perhaps even doing online businesses, e-commerce and so on and so forth. So they will require a complement between the mobile and the fiber, and we believe that this is a great opportunity that we have before us.
You know, you talked about the opportunity, and you also talked about how many households you've managed to connect so far. But you also alluded there to monetization. But there was a lot of chatter about the fact that monetization had actually been derailed, that there wasn't that much public-private, there wasn't that much private interest in wanting to partner with the public. So are you saying that that's not the case? Is there private sector interest?
No, it's a very good question. See, incidentally, fixed line networks, optic fiber networks, are very expensive to maintain, especially because we have huge construction work going across the country. We have a huge number of programs.
India is forever under construction.
Yes. So therefore, cuts, every fiber network suffers nearly about 4 cuts per 1,000 kilometers per month. So the cost of maintaining a fiber optic network is very onerous. So therefore, and coupled with that, we have a low, what do you say, expected revenue base in the rural areas. So it's a very hard market, unlike the urban areas. So therefore, the private sector perception of this particular value of this particular network is a little low. I mean, I think we can well understand that. Therefore, I think we have decided to go forward with the public sector model, wherein BSNL will maintain it, run it, and then monetize the last mile. So we are not monetizing the whole network, but the last mile, where from the village point, I think they will take it to the households and maintain it and service the customer. And that's worked well, I think.
I'll come to BSNL and the revival package that the government announced for BSNL in a second, but let me get Mr. Subramaniam into the conversation as well. Mr. Subramaniam, you know, as part of the India at 75 vision, Niti Aayog had put together a strategy document, a strategy paper on the use of digital technologies, the use of digital innovation. As things currently stand, beyond Ayushman Bharat, beyond health and financial inclusion, where do you believe the next bed of innovation will lie, especially in the context of the development state that the Niti Aayog is pushing for?
Before I answer that, I'd like to actually take you back. What's the importance of digital public infrastructure? I think that's very, very important to understand. You see, I think the digital space grew in an area of benign neglect. Governments around the world allowed them to grow because I think that was required very early on. One didn't understand how these digital technologies would grow and how they would pan out in the long run. But over now, the last 20 years, people have actually realized that there are a lot of externalities that come out of this. There are network externalities, and actually a few firms can actually dominate the entire digital space. And that's where I think the digital public infrastructure concept becomes very, very important. I mean, it's very related to what we call technology commons. And commons are a public good. So there is a fundamental question. Is the digital architecture through which the world today, and certainly the world of the future, is going to be run by a few monopolies or oligopolies, or is it going to be left common on which a lot of innovation, technology, entrepreneurship can drive? And I think that's where India is a leader in 3 areas, in the thought itself, in content, and most importantly in rollout. I mean, we have been rolling out it in billions. And therefore, you have so many examples of digital public infrastructure in India. And you've got the UPI, you've got Aadhaar, you've got the account aggregator stack, you've got CoWIN, you've got the agri stack coming up, you've got the logistics stack which is coming up, there's a labor stack in the pipeline. So Niti plays an interesting role. I mean, the role of Niti is, as a think tank of the government, its job is to ideate, incubate, and then transfer, the IIT of the government. So as the IIT of the government, I think it's done it successfully. It pushed digital payments. I think it's in the process of pushing a couple of other things. I mentioned agri, I've talked about labor, I've talked about logistics. I mean, the portal was conceived here, but then now you have a department taking it forward. So I see a bright future, and I see this space being an area which will actually drive Indian technology and much more Indian entrepreneurship in India and globally.
You know, that's a nice line that you've given us. Niti Aayog is the IIT for India, and I can see many will probably go with that headline tomorrow. It's a quotable quote there, Mr. Subramaniam. But, you know, I'll come back to you on the importance of the digital goods aspect that you spoke of and what we can now expect in the next phase of growth. But let me get to Dilip Aspi of NPCI. And before I get to you, Dilip, let me do a quick poll here of the audience. How many people here use UPI? Literally everybody in this room. Dilip, that should bring a big smile to your face.
Who didn't raise the hand, actually?
Who doesn't use UPI?
Yeah.
That's one solitary gentleman in the room, and okay, three people in this room who don't use UPI. So, well, the house is on your side, Dilip.